Okay, this screencast is going to pick up with Japanese internment, which is also going to highlight our second resistor and dissenter for the unit, who is Fred Korematsu. So, there are obviously a large number of Asian Americans living in the West Coast, and there's a lot of Japanese, nationals as well as Japanese American citizens living on the West Coast. And after Pearl Harbor, there's obviously a lot of anti-Japanese sentiment and a lot of hatred kind of shown towards the Japanese people living in America. And, they're a lot easier to target, because they look different than, the German Americans and the Italian Americans, who Germany and Italy are the other two European countries that, the U.S. is fighting in this war. So they're going to be kind of targeted with this action that is known as Executive Order 9066. This is something issued by FDR, which is going to call for the evacuation of Japanese Americans from the West Coast and force them to be detained in camps for the rest of the war. So basically, the Japanese Americans living in, California, Oregon, Washington would be forced out of their homes and relocated and held in detention camps for the duration of the war. This will affect over 100,000 foreign-born and Japanese American citizens, meaning that some of these Americans are, or some of these, people affected are born in Japan, but many of them were actually American-born citizens. It shows you here on the screen the three kind of groups affected, just depending on what generation they fell into, and these are Japanese terms to refer to either first-generation Japanese nationals, or second-generation citizens, or even third-generation, and that's Issei, Nisei, and Sansei, depending on which generation. But yes, so like, for example, the Sansei generation, these are the children of children, who were born in the United States. So they are third-generation U.S. citizens being forced into detention centers, which is just crazy. Again, the states they're coming out of are California, Oregon, and Washington. And they would, 2/3 of the Japanese relocated during the war are going to actually be American citizens, which is obviously the majority. This just depicts some pictures for you, some information about the order. This map kind of showing you where the camps were located. Picture of the camp sites. Tanforan Assembly Center is one of the detention centers held in California. Probably one of the more popular, populated ones, one of the larger ones. Showing these citizens waiting in line. Some of them sleeping in barn-stabled, kind of like buildings. Small quarters. This isn't like this isn't like a labor camp or a death camp, but it is very, modest quarters, and they are leaving their personal belongings behind. And just to kind of continue with this idea, Germans and Italians, there are cases of their internment as well, but there is not going to be one consistent, interned group as there was for the Japanese. With Germans and Italians, again, they're more difficult to pick out. The Japanese are really targeted because of what happened at Pearl Harbor as well. There's a lot of bitterness and a lot of hostility there. Note that Japanese Americans living in Hawaii are not detained. Hawaii's economy very much depended on the Japanese living there. And so they are kind of left alone, which is interesting, but that just shows you where America's feelings lie in terms of being concerned about the economy thriving, but the west coast of the actual continuous U.S. states will be detained. This is very much considered like a violation of civil liberties because, first off, it's unconstitutional with considering that most of these people are actually citizens, but there's no due process, no hearings, there's no, case to determine guilt or innocence of individual citizens. Pretty much most of them are just suspected of being guilty. And not even suspected, but just, because they fear some of them are guilty, they want to, do this to the whole group. And that's just in itself, probably unconstitutional, as we'll find in the end, but the Supreme Court at the time was refusing to intervene in any way. This event is quoted as being called the gravest violation of civil liberties since the end of slavery. This just kind of showing you reasons why this would be able to happen. Again, resentment because of Pearl Harbor, long-standing anti-Asian sentiment, including, racism specifically against Japanese, and just economic competition that was existing between the two countries at this time. Again, not really fair considering many of these people are third generation, Japanese Americans, meaning they have really less than a tie to Japan than they have to the United States. Alright, so that will then factor into our second resistor and dissenter, Fred Korematsu. He is a Japanese American who was born in the U.S., and he was a citizen who refused to present himself for internment. Just to give some background here, he was born in California, Oakland, California, in the year 1919 to Japanese immigrants. So he is a second generation, but first born Japanese American. And he's quoted as saying, "I just thought of myself as an American. I was born in the U.S." After Pearl Harbor, before any of the executive order happens, he was actually fired from his job because he was Japanese. And then FDR issued the executive order 9066. So Korematsu's family reported to an assembly center as instructed in 1942, but the 22-year-old at the time, Fred, refuses to go. He gets stopped by police in California, and on May 30th of 1942, he was charged with violating the military's exclusion order. And a newspaper headline that next day read, Jap spy arrested in San Leandro, which just kind of highlights the anti-Japanese sentiment that was existing, and the fact that people are being a little hysterical and over-exaggerating because he's not a spy, but because he was refusing to turn himself in, he's automatically accused as being such. He was incarcerated in San Francisco federal prison for 2.5 months, and then the ACLU, out of California, and that stands for the American Civil Liberties Union, will actually bail him out. It was a $5,000 bail, but the second he's freed, he was then handcuffed and brought to the Tanforan Assembly Center, which was the detention internment camp, like in one of them in California. We saw pictures of it earlier. Okay. Although he's imprisoned here, he chose to challenge the exclusion order instead of pleading guilty. He basically said that the internment was wrong and that he didn't do anything, disloyal. But nonetheless, he doesn't get a lot of support from the Japanese American community, including those living at this detention center. They initially, don't really want to support his constitutional challenge. They kind of avoid him. They fear for the safety of their own families, and they don't want to be penalized or arrested like he was. So many of them at the time will actually distance themselves from his efforts. The federal district court in San Francisco eventually found Mr. Korematsu guilty of violating military exclusion orders, and they actually sentenced him to 5 years probation under military authority. And during this time, he was incarcerated in what he calls the concentration camp, but again, kind of being held in detention centers. Eventually, he and his family were moved to Topaz, Utah, which was actually nicknamed by camp officials as the jewels of the desert, or the jewel of the desert. But this jewel lay in the middle of the desert, surrounded by armed guards, barbed wire, watchtowers. It doesn't really sound like the most ideal situations. So clearly the American military is kind of trying to justify the conditions of these Japanese Americans and nationals, but in actuality it's not ideal situations. So he is challenging the ruling. Eventually, his appeal reached the Supreme Court in 1944, several years after the executive order was established in the first place. And in this Supreme Court decision, the court upheld, the legality of the internment policies. It was a majority ruling, 6-3. And they stated the following: "We cannot reject as unfounded the judgment of the military authorities and of Congress that there were disloyal members of that population whose numbers and strength could not be precisely and quickly ascertained." What that quote is referencing is the fact that, I might even have that on I don't have that yet. What that quote is referencing is, that they cannot prove what the military is saying is a lie. And what the military is saying is necessary for this internment is because they suspect that there are Japanese sympathizers and perhaps spies and nationals siding with the Japanese in this war effort, and they feel like there are some of those individuals living amongst the Japanese American population, and because they can't, pick them out individually, they feel it's justified to detain them altogether, which is, again, unconstitutional, but that is their justification for the matter. And the court is saying we can't deny that that's, not the case, or we can't deny that that's a fact, so we're gonna support what the military is doing here. And in a statement that just speaks volumes of the absurdity of this decision, the court also declares that Korematsu was not excluded from the military area because of hostility to him or his race, indicating that what they're doing is not, they do not deem what they're doing as hostile, or racist, which is not the case. Korematsu petitioned for a rehearing after the Supreme Court ruling, but that was denied, by the year 1945. He's devastated. He's lost. Japanese Americans had lost. The Constitution's failed. He does worry about the impact his ruling may have on his own children and other Japanese Americans down the line. He's quoted as saying in the aftermath, "Are we Americans or not? Are we citizens of this country or not? They can put us away without a hearing. If you look like the enemy, they can just put you in a box. That's not okay." And it's not until the early 1980s that Korematsu brings his case back before the courts, and the court actually determines that the internment was, in fact, unconstitutional. So that will happen 40 years later. He will keep fighting, but that's just embarrassing that it took so long. So in terms of just loyalty and what the sentiment of Japanese Americans is at the end of the war, many internees are pretty apathetic about their loyalty to the U.S., seeing as they were betrayed by their government. They do feel betrayed. Almost 25% of the adult internees, particularly in one Arkansas camp, answered no when they were asked if they would swear unqualified allegiance to the United States, because they feel that the country has not protected them. 6,000 of those interned would renounce their U.S. citizenship and actually choose to be sent back to Japan. But others did, others sought to prove their loyalty. About 20,000 Japanese Americans joined the armed forces from the camps, and another 13,000 joined from Hawaii specifically, wanting to prove their loyalty to the United States in that action. There was an all Japanese American combat team. I believe it was entitled the 442nd Regional Combat Team, which was the largest Japanese American group, drawn heavily from young men in the internment camps. Very decorated group, meaning they were very successful. They had heavy casualties in both Italy and France, but they were honored with the Congressional Medal of Honor and 47 Distinguished Service Crosses, 350 silver stars. You see all those statistics, 3,600 Purple Hearts. Those just show you their awards overall. You can pause and type this information down on your screen, but we might conclude it on Monday, because the screencast is going to end. So if you have any questions at this point, write it down. We'll talk about the conclusion of internment on Monday.